Kanda Jotonga Jodana, the Jonoma Jurwa Gozoda, the Jojo Chara, the Sapatana, the Source in Jordan Jono, Jingle, Jono, Jingle, Lancabasa, Single, Kabai, the Chara, Jingle, Toba, you know, Jingle, do you know, Jingle, the Toba was in the Now we're studying the book called The Jewel Ornament of Liberation. It has basic 6 topics: the Buddha nature, precious human life, and the spiritual master, and its instruction, the method, and result and activities. So now we're in the session of the instruction by the spiritual master. That there are 4, as yesterday we went through, there are 4 basic instructions. The reason because we have the Buddha nature, which is the primary cause, that which is the seed of the enlightenment, that nature is free from all the suffering and delusions. Yet it is obscured by the based on our confusion, which is caused by the ignorance, fail to recognize that the nature. So we suffer endlessly. So to free from that kind of suffering, then we need a lot of all the necessary causes and conditions. So one of the first important is the precious human life, which describes here the leisure and endowment and the faith. When we have that much is not enough, then we need a spiritual master. So why we need a spiritual master, all this explained step by step. Without the guidance, we cannot free from delusions. Those the 6 or 5 topics which describe the spiritual master. Even though we may have spiritual masters, but then we individually need our mind to reveal the Buddha nature, that we fail to recognize that through the 4 obstacles, as yesterday mentioned. We attach to this life. Because of being attached to this life, then we cannot free from samsara. Or we attach to the pleasure of the samsara. Or we are attached to our individual peace, not for all sentient beings. And the 4th, we fail to cultivate the principal method to achieve the complete Buddhahood. So to free from these 4 obstacles, so we need the spiritual master's teaching instruction. So we meditate. What he is saying is that, the way how things abide, function, and the way we perceive are 2 different. We don't perceive directly how things are functioning. We perceive artificially. That's what's called fabrication, contrive. So to get rid of that, the fabrication, the artificial, just for this life to see how things are impermanent. No? Because we perceive artificial. Everything's like a concrete, real, substantial. Then we attach to this life so much. Because that's, the afflictions of this life. So that is kind of like a tyrant force that we kind of deliberately create a cause for the suffering. So to avoid that obstacle, the afflictions, then first look at the impermanence of all phenomena. So as yesterday we went through step by step, the gross type of impermanence. First you look at how everything starts, then at the end how it dissolves, even this whole universe. Then more subtle, look at the 4 seasons, how it's changing every year. A country with its 4 seasons. And then day and night, how it's changing. Then is how it's changing from morning to evening. Look at this. That gives us a good picture. So that changing means it's not real. No? So it's changing means not real. Everything is just manifesting. Even look at you yourself. Morning I feel good, fresh, and the afternoon you are tired, exhausted, and then not feeling not good. Even you cannot trust yourself. We cannot trust our own mind. Because we want to do something, the mind takes another direction. It's changing, keep constantly. So this is the way how to see things through carefully. So that when we see everything is changing, manifestation, then it's just a reflection. And all the changes are taking place according to the cause what we have created. It's constantly changing according to the cause we created. Now, so look at this. Then it says, we all, as we know, whole world, everybody, no, we all know will die one day, will age, will get sick, but we don't know how to prepare for that. We kind of build up artificial, create one fabrication, and then to cover up that, create another fabrication. It's like onions, one after another, without seeing the reality nature, without perceiving how things are functioning, and we don't know how to prepare that. So he is so carefully. So he's trying to explaining us the human value, what we have. No, the human value we can manifest through the perceiving the reality nature of the phenomena, not from artificial. The human nature is peace and happiness. Because that we just, no matter what kind of, usually I say, no matter what kind of religion we believe, culture we have, educated, uneducated, rich or poor, naturally we are just dominated by the law of the reality, desire for peace and happiness, desire to free from suffering. But then we have failed how to create that, manifest that So look at the impermanence. Everything's changing. Then you see that, live with that. When we could live with that, then, see, there's a great chance to dissolve our attachment to the reality, what we perceive. I'm saying this reality, what it means, what we perceive as everything's real, substantial. We perceive as everything's like permanent, substantial, concrete. Now, when we see this impermanence vividly, directly, then see this all concept of those permanent, concrete dissolves. Like a person, say, who tells lies constantly, and he covers up all those, and then in the group, somebody comes, proving, you told like this, that, all just proved. Then he's paralyzed. All his covering is paralyzed. Nowhere to go. There's nothing to prove. Like this, all our afflictive emotions have no place to go now. There's no place to attach. There's no place to hate. Grasping. Then you see, at that place, then you see the real nature of the mind is coming up. And then there's real peace. It's a happiness, you see. Just look at the beneficial effects yesterday, you see. Free from attachment, aversion, and the equality nature of all phenomena, see. So we have to get that kind of sense. So I remind you, when you ask questions related to the subject. What we're discussing, When we are discussing, like today we'll go through the suffering. So you ask questions about the suffering session. Don't go here, there, It's become more consistent, So that's impermanence why we're studying. How to release as it's mentioned, how to release our entanglement. How we're entangled in the delusion. Now, so when we have no concept of impermanence of understanding of that, how much suffering we have. So much suffering is there. No matter what kind of high practice we do, all those high practices become an aid, support for our attachment, for our the ego, those all high practices becomes a support to establish more ego, more attachment. If you don't know this impermanence and the suffering. When we know the impermanence, as I mentioned, the word impermanence means it's not real. Everything's not real. So it is impermanent, the whole. It's momentary. transitory nature. And there's chance to release all this, grasping. And we start Dharma practice from there. That's why the book how start is Spiritual Master's Instruction. And so, as yesterday we went step by step, so precisely, Then you see, when you do things, you will do things very honestly, sincerely. Since we know how to sincere to ourselves, we know how to sincere to others. So this is the way how to, as mentioned, how to bring up our human value. Because we have all the potential to manifest. So impermanence. So just to remind ourselves, the prominence is very important at the beginning, at the middle, at the end. It's very important at the beginning to start our Dharma practice. It's very important to infuse, to inspire meditation practice every day. And it's very important at the end for the completion. It's not just a preliminary. So read the life story of the great masters in the past. They dedicated their whole life because of this. Now today it is chapter 5, the suffering of samsara. Yeah. Now we studied impermanence. We get some sense. And now here say, you may think that it is fine that impermanence causes us to die, and because you will be reborn again. So I will be reborn again, so what's the matter? It's okay. Impermanence, I can accept it's true. I know. One day I'll die, but I will reborn. So what's the problem? Once you are reborn, you will have an opportunity to enjoy all the glorious pleasure of gods and humans. Say again, next life, again I will come back as a rich man. And I will enjoy all my life. So no problem. And I'll be monk. Now, to enjoy all the glorious pleasure of gods and humans, and that will be sufficient for you or for me. Yes, for you, specifically for me, sufficient for me. I will eat a nice breakfast and go for work, come back in the evening, have a nice dinner. So that's enough. A nice house, so enough. That's sufficient. So now, if you have that kind of thought, say, such thinking, typifies one who is attached to samsara's pleasure. So we're attached to samsara's pleasure. We don't know behind that. We don't know underneath. Say, as the antidote to this attitude, one should meditate on the falls of samsara. It's not just, of course it is antidote, but not just like a chemical antidote, artificial antidote, but to really see it carefully. So the summary, all-pervasive suffering, likewise the suffering of change, and the suffering of suffering. These three constitute the falls of samsara. Now look at this very carefully. So, if these three sufferings were explained by simile, all pervasive or conditional suffering would be like unripe fruit, like raw, unripe apple, orange. So it's not eatable, just you ignore, don't pay attention. This is not ready yet. The suffering of change would be like eating poisonous rice, a very delicious, well-cooked rice. Now here rice, now it's in Tibet, there's not so much rice. So rice is very precious. That time. Now here what you call, what's more precious? Anyway, a delicious, a delectable, poisonous food. When you eat, so delicious, juicy, so delicious. But after some time, because it's poisoned, that problem starts. This is our pleasure of this samsara is in that nature. It's giving very good example, you see. And the suffering of suffering would be like mold on fruit. It's like if you have a first on the fruit, or if you have a pimple, first is unripened. Then when there's a pus comes up, a lot of pain. Lot of pains. You have to get rid of all the pus, like this. It's just, it's very obvious suffering. We're saying basically it's very obvious suffering. If one explains these three suffering with the definition, the all-pervasive suffering or conditional suffering would be neutral feeling. There's no special obvious suffering. It's neutral. Neither feel good, nor feel bad. Just I'm fine. We have no conscious of the suffering there. And the suffering of then the suffering of change would be a feeling of pleasure here. Pleasure like the eating the juicy food. There's a pleasure, happiness, joy. This is very good, you see. And the suffering of suffering would be feeling of suffering, suspicion. Not feeling good. You're angry. You're depressed. And desperate. That kind of feeling, You feel how I have to get out of this. Like when you feel hungry, thirsty, or cold, or heat. It's called suffering of suffering. It's called suffering of suffering because pervasive suffering is underneath. On above that, the obvious suffering. Suffering of suffering. Look at this. Now this is very important when you're just intellectualizing. Just you should feel in your heart. This is what it means. I know this is. Now, if the primary characteristics of these three sufferings were explained, we would see that we are pervaded by suffering. The moment the afflicted skandha exists, this Kala is mentioned, this psychophysic, the 5 psychophysic skandha aggregates. Because this body is the result of an unenlightened mind's production. Make sense? It's the result of the afflicted mind, means unenlightened mind. It can be virtuous, non-virtuous. Afflicted virtuous mind, afflicted non-virtuous mind. The 5 skandha, So as soon as we have this body, the 5 aggregates of this body, the form, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness, the composite of these 5 aggregates. So that nature, the suffering is there. Base of the suffering. So look at this. There's nothing to attach to this. First of all, look at this. So this is the foundation for our Dharma practice, basis for practice Dharma, not to attach. Exists here. Now here, these 3 are just Gampopa briefly explain, just to identify what are they, to recognize. Now he's explaining really further, all-pervasive suffering, or conditional suffering, what this means. So ordinary people will not feel the all-pervasive or conditional suffering. We ordinary, unenlightened mind, we won't feel, or we won't understand the all-pervasive or conditional suffering as a suffering. Pervasive S, all-pervasive suffering S. For example, when one is stricken with a serious pluck or and a small pain in the ears and so forth is not noticeable. When you have small suffering you used to have, and on above that, big like pluck, academic sickness. Now we got that. Then the other small suffering will not notice. Well, completely overpowered by that academic, the big disease, sickness. And we will struggle how to get out of that suffering. We will ignore or will not notice how to get rid of the small suffering. Pain in the ears and so forth is not noticeable. But the saintly beings now who are free from the suffering, it's called, in Sanskrit it's called Arya beings, who are above the ordinary people or beyond the samsaric state. The noble ones beyond samsara, such as the stream enters and so forth. There's 4, stream enters, ones returning, non-returning, and arhats. So there's 4 these noble beings. Those are beyond samsara. So they can say, they can notice, they can see the all-pervasive suffering as a suffering. So forth. We'll see the all-pervasive conditional suffering as a suffering. Now, as for example, when one is nearly recovered from a plague, from the epidemic, no, a decimal pain or pain of an ear infection is experienced as a suffering, then it's like that. It's very clear, isn't it? This is one example. Now another example, there is another example. When a hair is, usually I give this example because it is very easy to understand. When the hair is in a palm of your hand, there's no suffering or discomfort. When a piece of your hair is in your palm, you don't feel any discomfort. Even you don't notice there's a hair. But when that very hair goes into your eye, one of the eye goes, there's a suffering and discomfort. Then you will feel so uncomfortable. Until it goes out, tears come, all your pieces, you try to do everything to get rid of that. No. Likewise, this all-pervasive suffering will be felt as a suffering by ordinary people. We don't feel that. When I'm healthy, I don't feel any suffering. I feel so good. But, said, will be seen as suffering by the noble beings, those who are beyond the samsara. They can see the suffering. That's what's called the truth of the noble suffering. See, the real suffering will see by the noble beings. So when Buddha said you should know the suffering, means this pervasive suffering, not the suffering of suffering. Suffering of suffering will notice not just only human beings, even as you know, animals, insects, those anyone who has consciousness, they see the suffering of the suffering as a suffering. When they feel cold, they run away to get a little sunshine. When they get sunshine, they breathe. They feel so peaceful. And when they get so hot, and they try to run away, get a shade, get a cool breeze, if they find it, they feel so relaxed. Not only human being. That's what Buddha. That's not what the Buddha is saying. You should know the truth of the suffering. So you should know the truth of suffering means this, the pervasive conditional suffering. So we should know that understand this is the suffering. Because that's the basis of all the suffering. This is special wisdom we need to see. So this, you see. Now, just to have some, this is very important. So one, you see, this impermanence and knowing the suffering, when we know well enough, understand enough, then it will give us why we should practice Dharma. Otherwise, why we should worry about Dharma practice? Enjoy the life, that's fine, But we study, we want to meditate. We want to practice Dharma because of this. Since everything is impermanent. And within that suffering, how suffering is constituted. So look at this, How to free from the suffering of suffering. Every animal has a skill. as I mentioned, when they feel cold, they try to get some warm place. Like you see, even the birds knows, isn't it? In the summer, they come here, they sing, fly here, there, and the fall starts, and winter, they migrate to warmer place. When they're so hot, they migrate to a better place. See, even these animals, they know. Birds, a lot of those things. When they're hungry, they try to get a food. When they're thirsty, they're looking for water to drink. Not just we human beings. Now, to free from the suffering of change, see, look at this. Animals may not have much intelligence, but we human beings have a better, more, especially like through the medical research, Look at all these causes of suffering. If you have this problem, better off not use this. Eat this food better, like this. As you mentioned, delicious, poisonous food. So, even though it's so delicious, you better kind of stay out of that. So we try to make an effort how to free from the suffering of change. Like jogging. Jogging itself doesn't look like so pleasant, isn't it? That's sweating and the look so awful and so they don't like the jogging. But they think this is good for the health. Like, even we may not have renunciation to free from samsara, but to have some samsaric peace and happiness, we meditate. Close your eyes. And meditating can be very boring, It's better look at the TV, all this entertaining, But you say it's better, get out of this just to have yourself some time. Try to meditate, chanting mantra, do some visualization. That will help your heart, help to relax your muscle. So we do this to free from the suffering of change, to achieve the formless world, to achieve that kind of high state. It's the suffering of change. Achieving very deep meditation. The deep meditation can achieve by both Buddhists and non-Buddhists. So this is all suffering of, how to free from suffering of change, little bit, Now, how to free from the pervasive suffering. Now, how to achieve that. This is the point now. What we should do now. Here's mentioned, see, in the commentary on the treasury of Abhidharma says, when one hair from the palm of the hand goes to the eye, there will be discomfort and suffering. The churches, like the palm of the land, are not aware of the hair of all-pervasive suffering. They certainly are like the eye and will feel the all-pervasive suffering. Now how to free from that suffering? So look. This will give us a clear picture of whole samsara, the three worlds or three realms. Meditate. Now I have precious human life. I have the spiritual master. Now I have Buddha nature, the seed of enlightenment. How I can free from this kind of suffering. So this is what kind of the human brain intelligence, give you complete opportunity. These are digging the root of the problem. First get the root of the problem. Then you will know how to get out of that. If you don't know how to go to the root of the suffering, we will never aware how to get out of samsara. That's why I say this book is, such a precious. Taking the root. So we need a good spiritual master who can explain these things. It's not enough just give some empowerment, get some blessings, and you feel good. Oh, I like that, emotionally. But not going taking the root cause. Now to this, you see, to get rid of this, it's based on our confusion, the ignorance, you see. At the beginning of the book, you mentioned the samsara, the mental formation of samsara, the characteristics of the mental formation of samsara is the confusion. The characteristic of that confusion is the suffering. The cause of confusion is ignorance. All comes there. They are connected, you see. The cause of confusion is the great ignorance. Now how to get rid of that ignorance? See, in the Bodhicitta Avatara mentioned, what weighs on meditative equipoise, supported by the special insight, critical insight, can see the root of the confusion and chance to get rid of that, free from that. So this you see. So chanting mantra itself is not enough. One can chant millions of mantras. Of course there's benefit, no doubt. But to free from samsara, you need that kind of critical way how to uproot. That's why this knowing, so what, as I mentioned, what Buddha means, you should know the suffering, the noble truth of the noble suffering. This is what it means. Avoid the cause of the suffering. You see that. Now, this is about the suffering of change, you see. Have you got some understanding? This is how important book, you see. Now the suffering of change, you see. The second type, the suffering of change, is so called, this means why it's called suffering of change or changeable suffering. Called because all the pleasures and happiness of samsara will eventually change into suffering. In other words, it doesn't stay in that nature. The White Lotus of Great Compassion Sutra says, the kingdom of God is the cause of suffering. All the human kingdoms are also a cause of suffering. They change. Therefore, even one gains a universal monarchy over human beings that would eventually change to suffering. Now, this is very clear nowadays, isn't it? Who have been ruling the country for many years, enjoying the luxurious life, all the wealth they enjoyed. At the end, nothing special. Instead, lot of suffering go through. See, so look at this. So during that whole many years, 50, 60 years you enjoyed. When you go through all the suffering, what's the benefit that you have enjoyed for 60 years? What is there? Now, look at this, see. Suffering. The letter to a friend says, Nagarjuna, even if one becomes a universal monarch, one will fall into slavery in samsara. See, you become slave of the people. Once you are the monarch, universal monarch. Another day you become a slave. So that time, you, by being the universal monarch, don't know any benefits. Look at this. So what they're saying is that the outer condition will not give you complete satisfaction. We have to have an inner human value, manifest how to see things. Not only that, even one who achieved the bhakti and the enjoyment of Indra, the king of God, who eventually die and fall. Again, the letter to a friend says, even though one becomes Indra, who is praiseworthy, all the gods praise to that. You are so powerful, you are so beautiful, you are full of dignity, praise him so highly. One will fall down to the earth by the power of karma. When the karma is exhausted, fall down. No matter how you're secured, when the karma is not there, that all things what you organize disintegrates, disentangled. All your powers are falling into parts. Very clear, isn't it? To see these things, how much changing. So this I think here is also suffering, strongly suffering, as well as is impermanent here. Not only that, one who achieved the state of Brahman, which is a form world, is went from desire world to form world. Achieved that powers, and so forth. The King of Gods who transcends the desire world and who experienced the pleasure of meditative concentration, the form world. Because not free from samsara, would eventually fall down. The letter to a friend says, one who achieves the pleasure and happiness of Brahmahood, free from the desire world, will again become the fuel of avicii, never be heroin. No. And suffer continuously. So it's just a cycle going around. It's a saga of samsara. So your achievement, you cannot achieve, you cannot attach, you cannot trust, because it is impermanent. So these are suffering of change. That's very clear now, that's mentioned, Look at the suffering of change. So what he's saying is, he's not recommending you shouldn't be rich or famous. You can be rich. You can be famous, but don't attach to that. Just expect that will change. Prepare and practice Dharma. Because when you have Dharma, Dharma is always with you, whether you're rich or poor, whether you're famous or not famous. Dharma will never alienate, no. Dharma will never alienate you, even your soul or poor. Nothing. If you have the Dharma in your heart. That's what it's saying here. Otherwise, if you don't know carefully, then the Buddhists just say these things are not good. It's not saying these are not good. We need shelter to live. We need food to eat, clothes to wear, to sustain this body. No. But when you go too much without understanding, then you are grasping the suffering. You are chasing the suffering. Instead, they become cause of peace and happiness. They become cause of suffering. This is what it's suggesting, So say, withdraw your all mental afflictions into the mandala of the wisdom. Afflictive emotions has no space to bring real peace and happiness. So they will bring only suffering. So look at this suffering, Then you will appreciate the wisdom. It's so wonderful. You take a deep breath for peace and happiness.